Our rule for dimensions is the same as our rule for text. We should never place dimensions in a drawing until we know our intended plot scale. Let's look at how we can create predictably sized dimensions in our drawing. I'm going to click Open, and we're going to look inside of our Chapter 15 folder, located inside our Exercise Files directory, and I'm going to come down and select Drawing Number 9, Properly Sizing Model Space Dimensions. I'll highlight that drawing, and we'll click Open to bring it up on screen. Now this drawing is a civil engineering example. This happens to be a site plan for a proposed parking lot. Since this is a civil drawing, our model space units are set to feet. That means that every 1 unit equals 1 foot. Now our goal is to dimension our parking lot such that we can plot the drawing and fax it to our client for review. Part of our goal is to predictably size our dimensions in model space. Now I've already created a layout. Let me come over and click my Layout tab. This guy's set to 8.5 by 11, and I already have the company title block. At this point, I want to cut a viewport, and I'm practicing good form. I have a layer created, and it's current. Let's cut our viewport. I'm going to come up to my viewport toolbar and click the single viewport icon. When I do, AutoCAD's asking me for my first corner. Now, this drawing is going to be tight on this sheet, so I'm going to try and use as much of the title block as possible. So I'm going to move over, and I'm going to use my Object Snap, and the first corner of my viewport is going to be right here. I'm going to come down, and the second corner of my viewport will be right there. Remember that when we create a viewport, AutoCAD gives us a Zoom Extents view. Let's set this viewport to a scale. I'm going to move over and click the edge, and then we can come down and adjust our VP scale. Let's see what'll fit on the paper. I'm going to come up and select 1 to 20, or 1 inch equals 20 feet. When I click that, that obviously won't fit. Let's try another scale. I'll click the drop down. Let's try 1 inch equals 30. That looks like it will fit. All I have to do is tweak my view. Let me double click to get inside the viewport, and then I'm going to hold my wheel down to pan, and we'll shift the view down just a little bit. That should work fine. All right, let me move outside the viewport, and we'll double click. And let's go to Model Space and create a dimension. Let me click Model, and I'm going to zoom in on my parking lot. Now, since we're creating dimensions, let's make our dimensions layer current. I'm going to come up and click the drop down, and we'll select the dimensions layer. Now let's place our first dimension. I'm going to create an aligned dimension because I want the true length between these parking stripes. I'm going to come over and click the aligned icon. Let me click my first endpoint. Notice I have the running Object Snap. Let me click the second endpoint, and notice that that dimension is microscopic. At least one time in your AutoCAD career, you're going to create a dimension and wonder, what the devil's going on there? Why is that so small? Remember that your dimensions are conforming to a dimension style, and the size settings that we set in our dimension style represent the size we want our dimensions to appear on paper. So the problem is my dimension is coming in at paper size within the realm of a humongous parking lot. That's why it's so small. That's all right. We can leave the dimension the way it is. Let's just adjust our dimension style. I'm going to come up and click my Dimension Style icon. In the Dimension Style Manager, I'm going to come over and click Modify, and I'm going to go to my Fit tab. Let me click Fit, and I'm going to come down to the Use Overall Scale Of. Right now it's set to 1. I'm going to set this to 30 because that's the scale factor of my viewport. Let me set that to 30, and I'll come down and click OK. Lastly, I'm going to come over and click Close, and when I do, my existing dimension is now updated and will be readable at the appropriate size on my layout. Let's add one more dimension. I'm going to back up. We'll pan over. Let's dimension the length of the stall. I'm going to come up once again and use an aligned dimension. I'll click once. We'll grab the endpoint here to the endpoint here, and we'll pull down and click once to set the dimension. Let's return to our 8.5 by 11 layout. Notice our dimensions are sized appropriately for the plot. All we would have to do is finish our dimensions, and we could plot this and fax it to our client. Remember that the settings in our Dimension Style dialog reflect the size we'd like our dimensions to appear on paper. Knowing this, placing correctly sized dimensions in our drawing is as simple as setting our dimension scale to match the scale factor of our viewport.